Portland, Oregon. Kurt and Mark, two old friends who have become somewhat distant, agree to reconnect on a camping trip to find hot springs in the mountains. Slightly reluctant at first, their trip together brings out fond old memories, emotional baggage, and the challenges they have in finding security with their present adulthood. This is Kelly Reichardt's intimate, understated drama Old Joy, a gentle soul film that centres the attempted reconnection between friends amongst its well-timed immersive images of the wilderness, supported by a comforting, warming guitar score from Yola Tengo, examining the necessity for the characters to briefly escape from their stunted adulthoods, often expressed masterfully in what's left unsaid. Old Joy may also hold a layer of relatability for viewers who feel their own sense of adulthood has reached stagnation, or simply for those who wish to have a secluded break from their current routine. Very early on, viewers will recognise how observant Old Joy is within its imagery of the brief moments in nature that we may often take for granted. With only Mark and Kurt accompanying the viewer through the film's journey, the audience is given the opportunity to appreciate the contrast between dusty urban landscapes, the naturally picturesque, and the not-so-picturesque, ruined and sullied by careless human influence. Roger Ebert, in his review for Old Joy, wrote about the well-timed impression of the film's images and the ability to capture moments of natural spontaneity, stating that, like a great jazz musician, Reichardt understands that striking a single well-placed note can resonate more profoundly than playing a splashy cascade of noise just because you can. Old Joy resounds with sustained images and sounds that are given the time and space to reverberate, fitting for a movie that begins with the chirp of a bird perched on a gutter and to the chime of a meditation gong. Ebert's comparison to great jazz is appropriate, as Reichardt's images are often given enough time to breathe, to linger, just like the perfect note. The chirp of a bird, or the exact chime of a gong are the types of images that indicates a sense of spontaneity, at the right time, at the right moment. Reichardt captures an image or sound that may otherwise not have the same impact on any other day. Similar moments, such as a slug on a rock, or Lucy the dog, Kelly Reichardt's own dog, who also featured in her following film Wendy and Lucy, exploring the woods at the exact moment Mark and Kurt reach the hot springs, further reinforces this sense of immersive spontaneity. Images which are given the space and time to linger, to surround us within this landscape. Not only were Kelly Reichardt and her crew there at the right moment, but Reichardt clearly recognised what and when to film to create this alluring consideration of these surroundings. Kurt and Mark agreed to their camping trip together in an attempt to reconnect as friends, and initially the journey seems positive, albeit a tad reluctant, as they fondly remember childhood memories, and Kurt jokingly mentions how Mark keeps holding on to shit he doesn't need. Later that night, Kurt acknowledges that it feels like there's a gap between the two. It might not be a gap inflicted intentionally, or due to any previous tensions between the two, but there is a gap between these friends. The gap is between themselves, and how they expected adulthood to be. How they've changed from their fond memories. Kurt's joking remark about Mark holding on to shit he doesn't need is more rapt than initially expected, because the gap that Kurt feels also refers to the emotional baggage, the shit, that both of them keep hold of. Mark feels distant from his partner, who is about to have his child. He's worried about being overworked when he's about to become a father, and he's a shadow of the previously politically conscious mind he once was, listening to repetitive debates in his car. Kurt is now distant from most of his friends, losing contact with them. He views himself as a deeper thinker than he truly is, and he's carrying grief regarding the trauma of watching his father struggle after suffering with blood clots on the brain. There is a gap between these two, and how they initially viewed, maybe planned their adulthood to pan out. It's no surprise why Kurt feels some frustration in the challenges in reconnecting with an old friend. They're drastically different to who they once were. Sometimes these worries are expressed through the things that are left unsaid, something which Roger Ebert elaborates on further within his review, stating that everything happens, but as they say about jazz, it's as much about the notes you don't play, but hear nevertheless, as the ones you do, and sometimes the greatest drama can take place between the lines, or outside the province of the frame, and all we notice is a pause or a glance. There are unarticulated tensions, feelings of sorrow, unease, and even dread that course through the movie like a hidden creek. The awkward silences, the reluctant responses, the downplayed reactions, Old Joy doesn't shy away from the awkwardness in Reconnection. What is left unsaid often speaks volumes and invites speculation into the character's innermost feelings. Sometimes men of a certain generation can definitely struggle to open up emotionally. This is why the moments left unspoken contain such rich, truthful characterization. They're uncomfortable with bringing these thoughts to the surface. In their escape from the city, a momentary release from their baggage, anxieties and worries, Mark and Kurt begin to recognise how easily nature can be taken for granted, even if it's only during a brief moment in their lives. It's the seclusion that gradually invites more ease from both men to become more emotionally intimate, especially when they finally reach the hot spring. It's in this silence that there's comfort, and in that silence is maybe true reconnection too. Kurt offers Mark a massage because Mark is tense, and enhanced by the calm seclusion of nature, Mark allows it, away from the pressures and expectations of male adulthood, of societal assumptions regarding men. The two can comfortably appreciate each other's presence. Within this serenity, depending on the viewer watching Old Joy, it may be that we're reminded to remove ourselves temporarily from the pressures of the wider world, so that we can nurture and reconnect, either with old friends, or maybe even reconnecting with ourselves. Even when there may be quiet tension, Mark is initially hesitant to the proposition of a massage from Kurt. The two men have recognised that if they can't have their brief release from stress here, of all places, then where can they truly release? It's not only the nature of the forest that is often taken for granted, but it's also our human nature. The need to release ourselves from the pressures of adulthood from time to time, which is also taken for granted too. In conclusion, Kelly Reichardt's Old Joy may be a subtle comfort in its embrace of the Portland wilderness, but its tale of two friends reconnecting demonstrates a masterful exercise in reserved characterization, downplayed sentiment, and the underlying frustrations that often go unsaid between men and their friends. Offering a brief release from urban pressures, as well as the internal conflicts within themselves, there's a serene satisfaction in the final images of a car ride returning back into the city, a relatable contentment in recognising that sometimes, for us to adapt to adulthood, we need to take a step back and reconnect with the world, with friends, and with ourselves. A special thank you to my incredible tier Patreon supporter Gil, and my super tier Patreon supporters Constantine Bombelli, Jamie and Milkway.